If you've been in a relationship that's past this honeymoon stage, then you're either approaching or you're going to be approaching a seasons of disconnection, maybe even a lack of sex, and possibly even separation. Now, some people call this the 7-year itch. I found that timing is based, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how quickly the marriage becomes disconnected. It's really about the communication that remains. And can you get past that? How are you doing today, dear? Man, if I was there and was able to have somebody that could help me wake up, because those are the times that I needed the most help. And so today we're going to talk about how we can look at saving our marriages, really grinding into what it means to be a man in relationship, and what we can do to raise the level that we show up as husbands and fathers. Now, before we get into all that, we know that being a man today has never been more challenging. And for many of us, there's a pain associated with that. And this pain is real. It's a pain of loneliness, and it's a pain of unworthiness. And it's masked by our anger and resentment. And it's all because we're uncertain and afraid to take that next step. So if you're tired and fed up with where you're at, I'm going to ask you to start your hero's quest, where you can become more, accomplish more, and live more than ever before. Just go to the membership website, to members.theawakenedman.net, and start your quest today. And with that, let's get on with today's episode.
The average man today is sleepwalking through life, many never reaching their true potential, let alone ever crossing the finish line to living a purposeful life. Yet, the hunger still exists, albeit buried amidst his cluttered mind, misguided beliefs, and values that no longer serve him. It's time to align yourself for greatness. It's time to become a revolutionary man. Stay strong, my brother.
Welcome, everyone, to the Revolutionary Man podcast. I'm the founder of the Awakened Man movement and your host, Alain and Cass. Now, when you're thinking about your marriage, what would you say has changed the most? Or who would you think has changed the most? And have anybody really just stayed the same? You know what? The simple truth is that you've both changed equally. What we tend to get caught up is the romantic ideals of the early days. We forget that being in marriage requires both parties to grow and to change. And while that is true, it is also true that we need to grow. We may be growing at different paces. So how do you go from fighting for your marriage when apparently you have the most work to do? Well, at least that's what you're going to be telling yourself. So, but wait, maybe you're that guy who thinks that she's the one who's got the most work to do. Man, regardless of which dude that you may show up as, today's episode is going to be an eye-opener for you. Just want me to introduce my guest at this moment. Cass Morrow considered himself as a self-aware, severe narcissist who only knew 7-day anger binges and how to emotionally abuse, physically, and sexually assault his wife. Having separated from his wife for 7 times, they both came to the conclusion that things had to change. And boy, did they do that. Having served over 3,200 men in less than 2 years in a business, and his wife, Catherine, serving more than 1,000 women, their marriage reset program is saving marriages and families like no others that I've heard of. Cass, welcome to the show, brother. How are things today, my friend?
Alan, best day of my life. Thanks for having me on, buddy.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a busy day here for sure. Lots of podcasts on, and I'm just grateful for this one. I've been looking forward to this one all day. And so, as you know, when we get started here at the Revolutionary Man podcast, we always want to talk about people's hero's quest. And while I shared a little bit about your story, I'm sure there was a point that was truly rock bottom for you. So tell us about that point and how it had shaped you into the man you are today and the work that you're doing.
Yeah, I think that's such a beautiful thing, because anybody who wants to climb out of their hole, become a hero, even in their own life, guys, you're going to have your version of rock bottom. For me, it was pretty straightforward, man. I was charged with assault. I was on a year of probation, was forced into anger management. And if I screwed up even just a little, I was going to jail. And at the same time, I was about to lose the one person who I thought I loved the most, yet destroyed the most in my entire life. And, what's funny is I'll tag one more thing onto the rock bottom. And I think it's just really, really important, because when you want to do anything in life, make a change, you need to take some real responsibility. And the click for me was, I knew when the police were coming, I knew I'm going to bed. I'm going to bed. It's okay. It didn't matter how much alcohol was in my system. It was like I was immediately sober. Didn't matter how much I trashed the place. It was like I wanted to clean things up and was like, no time, get to bed, go to sleep before the cops get here. Alan, I knew, and I always tell people, you don't know what you don't know. I thought yelling was the only way to go, but no, man, when I clicked, I realized I knew how I was going to go hide and please don't take me away. You know what I mean? And so that was my moment right there,
Yeah, those are, that's part of that story there just resonates with me. It's very similar to what happened with my first marriage. I had married my high school sweetheart, and I had moved out. And less than a week having moved out, I thought I'd drive by on the weekend, go by the house, and when there was her boyfriend's car. And I'll never forget that day because we had a 2-story home, and it had 23 stairs. And the only reason why I know there's 23 stairs is that our oldest son used to slide down them on his butt and he'd count them. And so, we got good at knowing how many stairs, but I think I did those 23 stairs in about 4 steps. And it was, the worst day of my life, but also the best day of my life, because it woke me up to just how unconscious I was about life and where we're at. And so thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing that piece. And life's not always going to be easy for us. And it's about an opportunity for us to, if we're willing to see it, to actually do some good in life. And so you guys have been doing that. Your wife and yourself have been doing some amazing things, but tell me a little bit more. You guys do spend a bit of time on working on things like core values. I'm sure that was some of the stuff that you worked through. Tell me a little bit about that work that you guys have been doing.
Yeah, we firmly believe that you have to have your own core values. And I'm really pleasantly surprised that more and more, I'll call them gurus, are telling guys, wake up earlier in the morning, start your morning routine, get a workout on, cold shower, spend some time with core values, affirmations, and gratitude. I'm really thrilled about it. I have a different approach. I don't think you necessarily have to do it that exact way, but core values, you can't function in life without them. And if you really want a partnership, it's not about forcing your core values on someone. It's about their core values. Like my wife and Catherine and my core values, they blend, they overlap. We fill in each other's gaps with our values, believe it or not. People think we have to both value kids the same way. And well, actually, we totally don't. We absolutely don't. But we blend our core values and we carry each other with our strengths and lift the weaknesses based off core values.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes so much sense, right? And that's a great point, because how many times do we think that everything has to be exactly the same? And that's not really why we got into a relationship. We got into a relationship because there were things that were different, and that's what we were attracted to. And so I like that you've brought that distinction up, that people understand, because we've had the conversation on core values, and we haven't really touched on that piece about making sure that it's not about them being the same, but how do they complement each other. And so I think that's the point.
I think that also the big problem with core values is people, they throw them around and they bastardize them like they do with everything else. The Atkins diet back in the day, nowadays it's can't control your wife, which by the way is not manipulation. We all know that means get her to reflect. Everything gets twisted. Like, come on, you can't make decisions unless you know who you are and what you believe in. And if you want respect in your home, it's not earned. I don't know who's telling you this crap, but it's not earned. You have to show up. Oh, sorry, I said earned. I mean, it's not demanded. It's earned. You're going to have to show up with your core values and follow through on the decisions you make based on that. And then you earn her respect.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah, I just can't stress enough. Don't bastardize it. Embody them. It matters.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Completely agree. I knew you were just seeing if we were paying attention when you said earned there. But good thing that we were all listening. Now, listen, part of your story is about you guys really, like my wife and I have gone through our struggles, but yours is so powerful because you guys separated like 7 different times. And so what was it that you finally were able to figure out that wasn't happening those previous times? Take us through that piece.
Yeah, I think this is really, really valuable for men too. So, we talked about what clicked for me in my sort of rock bottom, but I had another one that was pivotal. And so Catherine had said to me at one point, so I'd done a lot of work, started with court mandated, and then I'd already done a number of years of therapy, and we had done, and none of this was working. Okay. And so Catherine had said to me one day, what it was I'll be straight with you. I was horny. I wanted to use it. And I was just like making my move, and she rejected me flat out. And I was like, oh, I want to use this thing. She was super sweet. She sat me down. I know what I'm about to say is not super sweet, but she sat, in the way she said it, she sat me down and she said, honey, I'm not in love. I'm not attracted, and I'm settling. I'm here to honor my commitment and my oath. And I lost my poop for 3 days. And then I clicked and I realized it is the man's job to fix it. If she doesn't want me, then what am I doing differently? You know, if I'm saying it takes two, I'm saying it takes you, mommy. How can I get you to want me again? Instead of showing up like every woman needs a man to show up who, for lack of a better expression, will throw her over the shoulder or deal with the rejection when she says no and make her want it, flip it so she says yes, you know? And at that moment, that's when I really embraced the journey. That's when I mean, you couldn't give me enough books and I didn't read them once. I'd beat them up with highlighters, markers. I would start comparing notes to training women for 2 decades in a group setting at my gym that I had. And I would start to just try this, try that. And I started to make a system on a spreadsheet. And it was because I was not happy with me and I was tired of not feeling good enough for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If she was going to reject me, no, man. I realized it wasn't about her. I needed to be in a position where I was the one deciding.
Yes.
No?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what it really means to lead in the relationship, isn't it? Because a lot of times we forget, we don't think about that, about what that means to lead. And when she sat you down and said that, you know, even for me, I could feel that dagger going through my heart.
Oh, it
Right?
hurt.
Like, what a sweet, simple thing to say. And then for you to look at that and go, that's right, I have to own this shit. This is my stuff. And so it can't be about what she's not doing. It's about what am I doing? And if I show up differently, if I do that work, I totally can relate to that, because that's exactly the scenario for me when I married my high school sweetheart and we split up. It was a journey for me. It wasn't about any more for her, because it's how I was showing up is what caused everything to fall apart. And so I appreciate
And I
you
think
talking about
it's
that.
important for your listeners to, of course, understand. Of course, wives have to take responsibility for their side of the equation. But where people get confused, if you want to step out into leadership, it's quite simple. You won't need her apology when she's sitting on your lap saying, baby, I love you. Tell me about your day. You won't need her apology when she's putting the kids to bed early. You won't need the apology when she's using your love language and running across the room saying, wow, baby, I'm proud of you. Thank you. Saying gratitude to the children for what you do. So stop looking for what you don't need. Start focus on what you can do and get what you want. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. That's good. That's pretty cool. You know, in our men's work, you know, or I've seen in some men's work, when people talk about men having to be able to be that provider, protector, and the presider over the family, and that's what they're using really as their core tenets. But how do these things serve us, and then how do they disempower us in relationship?
I think that they serve us because, I mean, if you're not a provider, I'm sorry, but you're not much of a man. Like let's be real here, okay? And you're talking to somebody who's lost a 7-figure business during COVID and had to start all over again. You know what I mean? I'm not discrediting anybody's work ethic. Maybe you need to work smarter, not harder. I don't know. But you need to be this is called being an adult. You should want more for yourself. If you can't buy tires or pay for a year of insurance or go on a holiday to Mexico with your family, you probably need to consider what you're doing and how you're doing it. That's all. And as far as providing goes, it's screwing with you because she wants the kingdom, but she wants the Prince Charming. So if just in case anyone's wondering, millionaires have their wives leave them with suitcases and picture frames and the children, no money. I've seen it over and over and over again. So it's not that. What you need to be providing is safety, security, so she can trust you. Maybe it's spiritual leadership, emotional. There's so many other levels of provision that matter. And where it's giving you the problem is that you're still stuck on, and she did it to you too. Hey, what do you do for a living, Alan? Oh, great. You think you're doing it right, but it's not right. And then protecting, I just have a firm belief. If you're busy defending yourself, how are you protecting your wife? I'm not saying you can't have a viewpoint. Good gosh, no. We're not doing happy wife, happy life here. But you can agree with your wife and disagree, either way, validating, showing empathy, caring, and you can still protect her heart.
Yes. Yeah, I love that part, and that makes so much sense, right? And I think that's where we do get confused, right? We think that when we're trying to protect things, that we're protecting ourselves, and maybe from a protection from the family unit, more of a protecting the family home. But talking about it and coming from the heart, it really leads me to thinking some of the work that I know you're certified with, No More Mr. Nice Guy work, and I really appreciate Glover's work as well. So how have you been able to? How did his work inspire you to make change in your life, and how are you using it in your work?
Oh, Robert knows, like, I love his work. I love it. But there's two things that are a little bit off for me. And one is, I think that it needs to be applied a little. Well, I guess I should rewind so you have some background. I found it 65 or 70% of the way through my journey. I wish I would have found it when I was 18. It probably would have changed and shaped my whole life. Okay. So listeners, if you haven't read it, honestly, if you're struggling in your marriage, I'd start there. If the first 7 to 20 minutes resonate with you, you're gold. Keep reading. But for me, I find that it's not enough of a plan. If you're thinking about, I mean, even if you think about protecting, like we were just talking about, how many times are you sliding across the hood to, protect your wife and family from kidnappers, man? It's not happening. If people are breaking into your house, it's not happening. Yet you have this need for approval.
Yes.
I'm a great guy, baby. I'm protecting you. I can protect you, man. You're missing the point. Move if some intruders are breaking into your house. So I apply that whole resource is phenomenal, but I take it and I break it down and I put it more into the different facets of what a man needs to be, with more of a step-by-step, And then I think from there, the one thing that's really, really different about it is that if you can embrace that there's no such thing as a nice guy, which, by the way, today is the simp, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just the new version of it, right? There's no such thing as toxic masculinity. There's just toxic people, okay? If you can start to look at it, you can realize all this really needs to be is, are you a man? If you can let go of your ego, for example, and go, all right, I guess Cass is saying some pretty cool stuff. Alan's agreeing about this whole providing and protecting and defending and everything. And you can then break away from this nice guy thing. The other thing that I think is really, really dramatic, I might add, and I don't want to offend anybody who's listening, but 3 times in 10 weeks, I said to Dr. Glover, I'm like, Robert, do you think that nice guys are narcissists? And he would not confirm or deny, and rightfully so, because he'd have to acknowledge that maybe there was some more narcissism than and back then it wasn't a thing in 2003 when the book came out. But I'm not saying that nice guys are narcissists, but what we do is we present narcissistic traits. And I'm all too familiar with them because I'm a severe narcissist on a scale. So yeah, that's I do spend a lot of time working with men trying to break down different characteristics of narcissism, because it's easy to gaslight if you're in your nice guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. What a great connection. I hadn't made that connection until you said that, about that can be that hidden factor, the narcissism in with the nice guy syndrome. Because really, what are we doing with in the nice guy syndrome? We're really looking after our own needs, right? All the time, it's about our needs, and that's then that I can see that relationship now that you mentioned that. And why?
Well, Alan, look at it like this. If I'm giving and giving and giving and loving her, that's what we call bomb, right? Then what I call is a nice guy triangle. So you give, you love, you're available, anything you want, baby, you can do no wrong. I'm sorry, let's fix it. And then we start to feel isolated, lonely. I'm the only one doing all this stuff. Okay, you wouldn't know that part about a narcissist, but that's what's happening.
Yeah.
And then you're going to go into this, what I call losing your power, where you start to blame her. We start to shut down. For me, I was rageful. You might shut down, And so you are giving to get. So you love bomb, and now you're gaslighting, right? Now, again, I'm not saying you're a narcissist. What I'm saying is it's really important to recognize just traits, just characteristics, so you can get through your communication issues.
Yeah, right? Traits and patterns, right? You're really talking also about a pattern. When you start when you start to have that self-awareness, you can start to connect the dots and go, hey, when I do this and this and this, and then she responds this way, this is what's happening for me. And it takes guys such as yourself and myself who, been down the path a little bit further, our work isn't about being gurus. I think everyone needs to be their own guru, but we just been down the path a little further and have seen a couple things that maybe we can remind you to, hey, that might be a landmine there. You may want to consider not stepping. And it's up to them to decide on how they wish to carry themselves. But it's a great point to remind ourselves that just because you're being nice doesn't mean that there aren't some of the narcissistic traits that are happening. The other side of that coin is you need to have the partner with that. And so that's where codependency comes in as well, right? And so when you're in a relationship and you have one side of it is narcissistic, there's still some tendency on the codependency. So can you tell a little bit about how that was showing up for your wife during that time when you guys weren't as self-aware as you are today?
Yeah, so for us, it's reflecting back now because we didn't know anything about narcissism at the time, and we certainly knew nothing about codependency. People are only just starting to figure out codependency now, really, because there's like a backlash on narcissism, right? But you can't have a narcissist in a relationship without somebody being codependent. Now, prior to this coming out, codependency has been looked at in different ways, right? If you talk about mothers with husbands gone and they're just all over their children it's the same thing. You can have nice girls too. It's just that it wasn't coined by a doctor in 2003, right? And so, yes, Catherine was very codependent, but actually it almost flipped for us because when I would say, well, I guess it's her turn, and like the cell phone would whiz across my face and into the wall, or the chairs would flip. It wasn't as long or as many, like it was months rather than years.
Right.
The harsh abuse, she called it reactive abuse. So it's hard for us as men to admit we're being abused, but mostly. But yeah, it was like she was very codependent on me and still has a hard time acknowledging or accepting because it was like it was just over her head, But the flip of it is I became very codependent. It was almost like I was trying to get my love out of that, and then I would kind of almost revert back to the old ways. And then she had to be codependent, or else why are we still here? Why are we still going through this? Right. Yeah. But you see, codependency, nobody wants to admit because then it's not the narcissist's fault anymore. But listen, you can just be an asshole and you can still have somebody who's codependent.
Absolutely.
Let's be honest,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, codependency shows up in lots of different ways. And what a great way another great framework there to recognize how we can bounce between those, right? That ourselves, not about the other person, but ourselves, and how those two almost go hand in hand and meet and kind of need each other. It's really interesting.
Well, yeah. You think about the love bomb. I can't love bomb you if I don't have somebody who's willing to accept it and take it and embrace it. Right. I would challenge you guys all to think about it like this. If somebody's capable of love, focus on that. Show them what that can do. That's what changed everything for us. What? I can feel joy and love. This feels good.
Yeah.
That's what we need to focus on. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Love that. Love that. Hey, you touched a little bit there on Gary Chapman's book there, like the 5 love languages, and we use it in our work here as well. But I've also heard that it's been somewhat debunked and may not be as strong as we think. Although I don't know, it seems to work pretty good in my relationship. Anyways, having said that, what have you found in your marriage work? And I know you guys talk about the real 5 love languages.
Real 5.
Tell me about the real 5.
I think, well, first of all, it's really, I mean, the first time I heard it, I think I was 22 in some sort of work communications course. Like the guy's last time I checked, I think it was like 86 books or something that the love languages applied to whatever, right? And I mean, so there's value, but like everything else, it gets bastardized. I'll give you the easiest point for listeners right now. Well, I do her love language, but I'm physical touch and she doesn't touch mine. There's a reason why I say things when I'm talking to you guys, when I say things like, when Catherine wants me to know she's proud of me, she sits on my lap. She runs across the room and touches my face, like she does that for a reason. It's because she's working to meet mine. And the reason why it's bastardized is I think people work very hard to understand it. This people, not men, people, okay? But then they focus on their own love language instead of realizing, just like everywhere else in life, if you're a taker, you're not going to get. Right. Just start giving, man. Give. Just like respect, just like gratitude. Give the love language to your partner, and then you'll get it. Now, real 5, I created my own thing with it. And I think you can use the love languages, but if you're always on point and you're just I call you a lord if you're in my program. If you're a badass lord and you are like flirting with your wife, you're banter, it's fun, you're getting through hard conversations, flipping it to positive, you can use the love language differently. If you're always on point, use them more for like date ideas. Use it more for ways to flirt. I teach guys to create something called the lovers list, which is all the reasons you love your wife. And there's a whole lesson I give on this. You can use it when you're angry at your wife and you want to say, I'm done. Or you can use it when you want to show her how much you love her, but you don't have to use it just as words of affirmation.
Right.
Use it as inspiration for all 5 love languages. And all of a sudden now, she's feeling love from all angles, man. You can't mess up. And why that's helpful is because dudes mess up. We need a step by step. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And what I like about that framework that you're putting together there is that it's really about just because someone scores a little higher in one of the love languages doesn't mean they don't appreciate it, the rest of them. And so that's what I really like about that, is that you're asking us to show up as whole, complete men. How can we show up differently? Because after a while, I think, if your wife, my wife, is her main love language is receiving gifts. Well, listen, if every week I'm buying her something, that's going to wear off pretty fast. But I also know she appreciates that we go out and do something. And so one of the things we did this past year is we set up date nights. She took the second Friday of the month, and I took the fourth Friday of the month. And the goal of this process was that individual would plan the evening, whatever it is that we're going to do. And I got to tell you, Cass, that we did things that we never would have done. We made rules that couldn't have anybody else come and spend time with us because we're pretty social people, and it couldn't be a movie night unless we talked about it ahead of time and it was something we really wanted to both see. So we've gone out dancing, we've done Shakespeare in the park, we've done, skating, like all these stuff that we just wouldn't do. And what I appreciated about that was that we really got a chance to see each other in a different light, because we were both somewhat out of our comfort zone. The one planning, because it's something different, we wouldn't necessarily do that. And the other one coming along and knowing that, hey, I'm just gonna have to participate, whether I like dancing or not, I'm just gonna have to go dancing out. It's just the way it's gonna be.
Yes, you're gonna show up awesome,
Yeah.
which is the point, right? Like, if you guys listening, if you think about it, if you're a 10, man, she has to meet you. And by the way, girls just want to have fun. They still sing it at karaoke today. So just have fun. Let me give you a level up. Is that cool, Alan?
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Okay, so when you're doing this is quality time, if you guys didn't understand what's going on here. And so what he's done, and by the way, they're also doing acts of service in a way, which is what I think you should do. You should stack the languages. They're each choosing what's going on. So they're serving their partner, sometimes for themselves, maybe, sure, quality time, and other times for their partner, okay? Now, what you can do is take your lovers list, so all the things you love about her, don't just say you're beautiful, tell her why. Use the quality time to spark different conversation, which, by the way, if you guys missed it, that's why Alan and his wife are not watching a movie unless it's planned. They're having actual quality time. Put your phones away. Make sure that you're using these love languages. And then when you start to stack them, that quality time could turn into, sure, we talk about acts of service, but now you got words of affirmation. You could surprise her, do not stop, and you can almost make that into a gift. Gifts, by the way, for you, more than just buying a gift. Make something, send a note, how you word things. Like, there's so many different ways. So I love this, Alan. Well done, man.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great pivot for us, and as we recognize that, and thanks for putting that framework around it again for guys to pick up the nuances within it. And it doesn't need to be too complicated. And I think when we do that with this kind of work, it just makes things so much better. Now, when my wife and I went through our setbacks, in our journey, we had some setbacks for sure. Like I was saying earlier, that even though she gave me an opportunity to find the man within me that she saw, it doesn't mean it was a blank check. At any given day, she could have said, I'm done, you're out, get lost. So I had to show up, I had to come in, but we had some setbacks, and I'm sure through your journeys, you guys have had some setbacks. So what advice would you give men who are in that season? They're trying to do everything they can to save their marriage, and they're facing setback after setback. What would be some advice you'd give them?
The first thing is fundamental, guys. You wouldn't be trying to, I don't know, save your marriage, join a program, read a book, listen to a podcast. You wouldn't be trying to be a better man if it wasn't for your wife. How do I know that? Because when you hit your version of rock bottom, you were afraid of losing her. You were afraid of failing in your marriage. You're afraid of another man raising your kids. So my gosh, if you can just hold on to a little bit of gratitude when it's frustrating. Number one. Number two, you're going to be feeling like she's always bringing up the past and your failures and your sucking and all that stuff. Listen, nobody wants to think about the past. Nobody wants to feel the pain. The example I like to use is affairs. Okay, nobody wants to imagine somebody's mouth on you or the other way around. So stop acting like she's throwing you in the past and start looking as an opportunity to get her into the future. The last thing I would say is this. Are you a leader? Do you believe that men should lead? Because if little wife has big feelings and you can't handle them and you're like, oh man, she said it's over. Okay, dude, cool. Again, does it take two or does it take you, mommy, to give me the instructions? Go be a leader. Show your gratitude, show up, take her to the future, provide structure for where you're going, and own it. Own it. If you're a 10, man, you will be looking down at a 6 or a 7 or possibly a 3 very soon, and you will have a choice. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a great point, Cass, because regardless of the situation, if you're doing this work, to save the, we're talking about saving marriages and, keeping the family unit together. The reality is that might not be the case. In the end, it may require that there's a separation. However, what it doesn't require is for you to stay in being the same knucklehead that you were that put you into that position. And you can choose to grow and change. And whether it worked for this relationship, I suggest that it'll probably do wonders anyways, or not, the next relationship you're in is going to be that much better because you're more self-aware, you have some training, you have some knowledge. And so I think the guys have to remember, this isn't an all or nothing choice here we're making. That all or nothing is really for yourself. Either you're going to continue to repeat the same patterns and behavior, or you're going to plant your stake in the ground and say enough's enough, and I need to be the man that I know that I can be. And so I think this work that really leads me into your program. You call it the new marriage. And so I'd like to get a sense of why you guys called it that. And how do you find that the work that you're doing is more effective than traditional counseling?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So we call it the new marriage. This really evolved, but we call it the new marriage because we really, really feel strongly, do not do what you're told by everybody around you. And if you don't believe me, look around. Divorce rates are climbing, except from after COVID, because people can't afford it. Don't worry, we'll catch up here. And it sucks to say it, but it's true.
Yeah.
And so we call it the new marriage because we break away from everybody's normal, like communication is key. No, it's not. That might be the blank key, but what the little grooves, man, like that's the skills you need to communicate, And I mean, I have this whole training on society solutions for free on my website. And why? Because every man needs to stop doing it. It's when you're happy wife, happy life is a big one. Or talking, having the talk. Why don't you want me? Like all these things that we do, like cover, I provide, I protect, I'm a great dad, I'm a great guy. All these things, man, you can't have the new marriage if you're still doing the old ways. They're not working, And now with feminism, and let's call it masculinity, okay, not toxic, okay? But that's just society's marriage. That's all that is. They're all fighting now, bickering and complaining, and now you're trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
But I would take it one step further, and I would say it's really the new man. I mean, there's a real big reason why we have 90%. So we've gotten about 250,000 followers. 90% or 85% at any given time are women. Okay. It's almost always me on social media. Catherine's in and out. And if that many women are on there saying spot on, wow, I've been saying this for years. This is what I want. I wish my husband would listen to this. Are you married, Cass? You name it. Okay. Then maybe you should start listening and become the new man. There's a reason that 90% of our followers are women, yet 75% of the people in our program is men. Why? Because it just takes the man to show up. Women are waiting for him. Your wife, if you're listening, is waiting for the changes, for something different, and wants so much more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not surprised to hear those statistics about the viewership and then who's actually showing up. And I'm actually grateful to hear that that you're serving this many men, because we do need to show up. And there hasn't, up until now, there really hasn't been a roadmap or a book for us to figure out how to show up in life. But today, there's no shortage of that information. What there's a shortage of is people actually taking action and doing something about it. And so this is what you guys are doing is phenomenal, man.
Thank you. And let's talk about that, because you have a program, I have a program, and there are some good programs out there. Guys, if you're listening, it doesn't have to be my program or Alan's. It has to be a program that fits for you. Do yourself a favor. Listen to who you're speaking to. Who are you talking to? Is it a salesman, or is it somebody who cares about the mission? Is it just your marriage and the dollar, or are they trying to disrupt divorce? Do they have a real masculinity goal? Okay. And from there, did they achieve what you want? Are you going to ask a broke person how to make 7 figures? No, don't. Are you going to ask a fat personal trainer how to become ripped? You shouldn't. You know, if they didn't save their marriage, they're onto a different marriage. And that's not where it ends. Please don't stop there. Because Alan, you mentioned you're on a second marriage. Like, it's what did you overcome?
Yes.
What is the real mission? What is the purpose behind it? Don't just jump in and try a bunch of shit, because, man alive, I'll save you hundreds of thousands of dollars if you don't just jump in, right? What are you trying to learn? I know I needed to learn how to stop yelling, but I needed to learn what communication was. Why I spent 100 grand before I learned that I need to learn communication is beyond me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So please, 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 if you're listening, there's so many good resources. Discern, be patient. It doesn't have to be immediate. You guys were banging and living together before you got married. So just don't worry about divorce papers. Just seriously learn and go forward.
Yeah,
you
man. Oh, yeah, I love that. Absolutely. And this is about, taking that action, but you're absolutely right. We don't need to go to that type of extreme. If you're willing just to pay attention, and there's just so much out there. Obviously on your journey, you've learned lots of stuff, buddy, and you've taken tons of courses and all of this, but you must have had a mentor or two. And so I'm going to ask, what would be the best piece of advice that you were given, and how is that serving you today?
Yeah, I to be honest, it's going to sound a little bit cocky, but I don't think I was given one piece of best advice, because I add to everything. I'll give you one that I love. There's an author, G.S. Youngblood. He wasn't my mentor. I just love G.S. Youngblood. His book is Masculine Relationships, and he's got another one, Art of Embodiment. If you're dealing with anxiety and stuff like that, you should really check it out. And he's newer, by the way, but I started to talk to him a little bit. I like him a lot. And in his book, he says, you may not be the problem, but you are the solution.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely love that. And he wasn't one of my mentors, but I absolutely love that. And I teach it in my program now when I refilmed it. And I said, but I'm going to add to it. And if you're not the solution, you're the fucking problem. That's it. End of day. And the reason why is simple, because are you going to sit there and complain? Come on, man. Like, your life is nowhere near as bad as mine was. So get off your butt. What's your problem? Seriously. But otherwise, though, yeah, I hate to sound cocky like that, but I always like to add on to everybody's thing and keep blending them and building them, like the love languages thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Making it so, yeah.
No, I love that. I love how you put that together, because you've made it yours, right? And that's really what the idea is that we've taken something that has inspired us, and then we've really molded it to fit for us. And you're absolutely right by adding
Can I give you one more? Have you heard of
let's do that.
Travis Neville? Have you read his book, The Ideal Man?
Travis Neville? No, I haven't.
Travis Neville, he is a friend of mine. And he wrote a book. I met him after he wrote the book. It's The Ideal Man, Reviving Masculinity. And actually, this is going to sound awful. I can't remember if it's the other way around. But anyway, he says, there's a gap between the trigger, the stimulus, right, and the response. And I don't remember if he got that anywhere. And I added to that too. And I said, so help her put the gun down, dude. Like, again, if you're a protector, if you both got shot right now, are you checking your wounds, or are you seeing if she's bleeding out and saving your life, man? And so, if you don't know Travis or GS, man, they're both awesome, solid dudes. Go check out their books. They're great. But the point is, you're like, don't stop learning. I guess that's what I would tell you. If you're thinking about one thing, I can't, man, David Data's got so much good stuff. Dr. Glover, I can go on, Des and Garrick. There's so many great resources. And then there's the OTs, man. Glover's would be an old timer too, but if you're talking about Gary Chapman, you start going through so much good stuff out there, man. Anyways, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely. I hadn't heard of Travis Neville, but I'm definitely going to pick that up. And we actually did a complete lesson plan on the masculine relationship last February, and the guys really got a lot out of that course, especially when they start to realize what it really means to lead in a relationship. And so I love Youngblood's work for sure.
Mhm.
You know, of everything that we spoke about today, Cass, and maybe there's something we didn't get a chance to touch on, what would be the one takeaway you'd want our guests to have?
Honestly, just keep an open mind. It is so hard in the moment. You know, you love your wife, man, and it hurts like hell to not feel like a valuable dude to her. It hurts like hell to feel like you might be failing. Or like a lot of my guys, man, they're so successful in life, but not with this. So you just know you're not successful, you know? Just keep an open mind, man. Just like your heart's open right now and bleeding. Keep an open mind because you are responsible for your choices. But better than that, you can make the choices that change everything. Everything. Health, wealth, relationship. Just do it, man. It's yours for the taking, you know?
Absolutely right on, brother. Love that. Hey, buddy, I just want to say thank you so much for spending time with us today. And you really are showing us that no matter where we are in our marriages, there is a chance that we can do something, even if we're the only one who wants to save it. And so if men are interested in getting a hold of you and participating in your work, what will be the best way for them to do that?
Just my website, morrowmarriage.com. So my last name, marriage.com. And it's also my social media. So whatever you like, there's lots of free stuff on my website too. So
Right on. I'll make sure all that's in the show notes for today's episode. I'm sure people are going to reach out. Once again, brother, thank you so much for being on the show. Really enjoyed it.
you got it. Thanks for having me, Alan. It's been a blast.
Thank you for listening to the Revolutionary Man podcast. Are you ready to own your destiny? To become more the man you are destined to be? Join the brotherhood that is The Awakened Man at theawakenedman.net and start forging a new destiny today.